Hello, welcome back to our channel. This channel is run by two sisters, so I'll be your host, Star. I plan to keep this brief since I already tried to film this twice now, so I'll be reading off a script. Plus, I don't think this should take long, so I'm gonna try to keep it really short. Currently, the video, when I edited it, was 25 minutes, but I'll definitely cut it down depending on the voiceover, and yeah. Anyways, as you read the title, I'll be discussing this current redraw, so let's get into it. I'm redrawing this character named Theo. Usually I redraw him at the beginning of the year, but I wasn't able to do so. Earlier this year, I took a social media break and a slight break from art because I was frustrated with my artistic abilities. I tried to draw this character about 4 to 6 times. I can't remember the exact number, but every time I drew him, it was really, really bad. I'm not particularly proud of those artworks I did of that character earlier in the year, so I won't be showing it in this video, but just know that it was really bad. So since that, the time that I took that break, I picked up drawing again, and I have done several pieces this year so far that I am truly proud of. So back in June, I decided that I wanted to pick up this redraw again. It didn't go as easy as first, but eventually I made it work. So for the first piece of Theo here, I just did a standard character illustration. I had to work on this design heavily. Compared to the past iterations, Theo has been mainly monochromatic and lacked any uniqueness. I don't think this version in particular is the best he could be, but it is better than what I have done in the past, in my opinion. I wanted to add colors to his design, so making sure that I work with colors that paired well was very important. Despite the introduction of new colors into this color scheme he has going on, like red, black, yellow, this white, silverish, gray color, the colors are still pretty desaturated, so I think those various colors still work well together. I don't think this is this is going to be his final color scheme, but I like the overall look for now. Another change that I added was the design of the mask. Prior, I drew a medical mask just because when I first drew Theo, this was during the height of the pandemic. So at the time, it just made sense to me because that's at the time, that was the only type of mask that came up to me in my head. So understanding this character first made me understand what I should change about the mask because it just didn't make any sense now. And not saying that it didn't make sense prior, it just doesn't really make sense now. I didn't want to give up the mask element personally because I just like that element. I just like that look. So I decided that I wanted to add an Oni-inspired demon mask because of Theo's Japanese origins. Any other changes that I have aren't really too major. I got rid of the sweater element that he has had in past iterations, but I still invoked that covered up look that he had by adding these long arm sleeves or these glove type things. I do have another major change or a new addition, which is the addition of the scars that he has all over his body. I do think personally I went overboard with them. It's kind of a bit random, the placements. So I think in the future, I would prefer smaller scars to display this fighting nature that he has going on, as opposed to all the scars he has all of his body being very big. Tiny, light, whitish, quick marks around his body, or just in certain places that I feel are relevant to where he probably would have gotten cut if he was in a fight, as opposed to something really, really big. So I think that's something that I'm going to explore next year, or just the next time I draw his character again. Okay, so design choices aside, let me explain who Theo is. I haven't rewatched the video I made in 2022, but here's what I came up with from what I remember saying in that previous video to maybe new stuff now. I'm not entirely sure what's new or what's kind of the same. So Theo is a Grim Reaper, demon boy, or young adult. Not boy like a child, but like boy in terms of like a teenager. Or he could be a young adult, I'm not sure. But he is a Grim Reaper in training. He is very skilled in his fighting. And should be at the top of the list of potential people to take over as the next Reaper when eventually the Grand Reaper... I don't even know if death will still be a concept in like the underworld. I don't think so. So maybe when the next Grim Reaper like just retires, I think it's gonna be like retirement or something. I'm not exactly sure how I would go about it, but maybe like every so couple of decades, maybe every so centuries, someone steps down and then someone else takes over. But anyways, Theo should be at the top of that list of being the potential next taking over as the next Reaper. However, because he's unruly, he's uncontrollable, and doesn't really cooperate easily, that is not going to be the case. And plus, he fights a lot. I think these are characteristics of his that would have continued even after his death. So, like, those are characteristics that he had once he was probably alive, and they continued in the underworld. Besides that, I don't really have much else to say. He's very underdeveloped and very typical in terms of his storyline. So I'm 100% open to re-exploring it and like changing up the storyline entirely that I have created for him. I only draw Theo once a year, and so because of that, I don't really put much thought into his character at all. But hopefully I'll be sure to draw him more often so I can think of his character a lot more and the storyline that he is a part of, besides of the current annual redraws that I've done in the past couple of years. Actually, I think I'll just draw him more often and just won't only draw him as this yearly redraw. Currently right now, unlike the past, but right now this character, compared to like characters that I have in just like my regular OCs, characters that I have that I'm developing from like my webtoon, this character just doesn't inspire me as much at all. And I don't want to go through what I did earlier this year where this character becomes the reason, or the redraws become the reason that stopped me from giving up on art altogether, or just for like a brief period. So I think I have another piece in mind that I would want to use instead for a redraw for next year. Something with an illustration with the backgrounds, something a little bit more inspiring, and then I'll just save Theo for, the occasional times I want to draw him. I can draw him no matter the time of the year. Also, if Theo's storyline doesn't really work well for me, I have a bunch of different stories and a bunch of different characters that do work well for me. So maybe I'll just take aspect of his design and put it to a different character, or take his whole character and shove him into a different story. Because right now he's just a bit solo, and I don't really want to give up on the character as a whole. But anyways, let's move on. The first piece that I did went really well, and because of that, I decided to draw him again. Before I continue, I do want to say that I do really like the first piece that I did in terms of like my art style and things like that. I'm very, very proud of it. The second piece, not so much, but we'll get into that a little bit later, I guess. So yeah, like I said, the first piece went really well, and because of that, I wanted to draw him again. Not only because it went really well, but also because of the fact that like I didn't want just the video to just be the one character, or like that one piece. Anyways, I started the second piece at the end of July and worked into August. I don't like I said, I don't like the second piece as much as the first one. I tried drawing things differently, but it's nothing overwhelming, and it doesn't really strike me as like great or good or anything. I think it's just decent. I do have to say, despite my lack of enthusiasm for the pieces that I did in this video, I don't hate anything. At least, I don't know. For the second piece, I think it's just below the standard I have set for myself with my art. But it's not like ugly, or I won't categorize it as like bad art. Like I said, it's just decent. I think it's just okay. Anyways, as you may have seen as the footage is playing, because I'm not looking at the footage as I'm recording this voiceover, for the second piece, I decided to use a 3D model for 2 reasons. I wanted to do a second piece, like I said, and I didn't want to spend too long on it because the first piece, it didn't take that long, but I did spread it across a couple of days, and I was trying to, at least in the beginning for the second piece, try to do it in one go. That didn't end up happening because of just life in general, but that was the reason why I went to use 3D model, to kind of cut down on the sketching process a little bit. And 2, I wanted to try drawing something different, like from a different angle than just head on straight. It's nothing too dynamic or drastic. I could have actually played with the angles a little bit more, but overall it's still something different than what I typically do. The model I used was just okay. It was like all right, but I didn't realize like I didn't realize the weird hands of like the character, like the model. I didn't realize it until I was already sketching over, like on top of it. The hands reminded me of like AI art, and like just like the weird, I don't know, formations of it, or like how they're like stuck together and stuff. It's whatever. So I tried finding a reference from Pinterest to work with instead, and the reference was fine, and I don't know, I think I got it to work, but it was like, okay, it just wasn't working for me. I think it's because, or the obvious reason is that it wasn't at the same angle as the overhead angle that I was working with in this piece. So instead I used my own hands and tried to replicate that slight over the head angle. And I don't know, I think it worked really well. It worked better than the Pinterest reference because the angles were very similar, or slightly similar. But I realized that I should have stylized the hand for Theo's build. I think you could just notice it's smaller. Yeah, I don't know, I feel like I just needed to stylize for that character, but besides that, it worked out fine for me, and I was able to move on with that process, because if I wasn't going to figure out these hands, I was either going to scrap this or start over, but most likely scrap the piece altogether. Besides that, I don't really have much else to say of like the art. Towards the end, I did liquefy the face because it was too wide for me compared to how I drew the face in the first piece. So I played with the liquefaction a little bit to elongate the face and also squish it to become a little bit more narrower. What? Is that word narrower? I'm not saying that right. Just to become a little bit more narrow. And then I also played around with added colors like pink and blue at the end, just for a little bit more pop. But yeah, the process was similar to the first one. I sketch, flat color, do the under render, and then over on top, over my sketch, do the over painting / final stage of the rendering. And then at least for the second piece, I added another extra layer on top to have these like funky, it's not that funky, but to do those added colors of blue and pink. But yeah, I don't know, that is the end of it all. There was definitely some improvement, especially from 2021 to now. I don't count the 2022 redraw since a 3D model was used. Yeah, at the time I didn't know how to manipulate the model, so the build was very tall and wide for me. I'm not opposed to using 3D models like in the future, because I've used 3D models currently this year and in the past. Now I know that on like Hipster Paint you can manipulate the model to have a different type of body type, height, things like that. And I've been utilizing 3D models when working on like designing my webtoon characters, or not webtoon specifically, but like my webcomic characters in general. So like I said, I'm not opposed to using 3D models in the future to draw Theo again. I just have to like make sure that I manipulate the figure to be something similar to how I have drawn him in the past, a little bit more shorter, slightly petite, and a little bit more toned. But yeah, besides that, I think everything went well. And so these are the final products. I'm happy with the redraw overall, but I'm just kind of just satisfied with the art itself. So anyways, yeah, thank you so much for watching. It truly means a lot. Jen and I will see you in another video. So have an amazing day. Stay safe, stay cool. Peace. Bye, guys.